Ladies and gentlemen, let's pretend that my partner gave me a hug. He gave me a hug, and I coughed. I coughed, and I transmitted swine flu, and it came over to someone else. It would be ridiculous to charge my partner for a crime because he hugged me, because it was really nice of him to hug me. That is what Team Proposition is actually advocating in today's debate. We should not adopt a system by which we punish people indirectly for other crimes. So we believe, to each his own, punishment. Now, I'm going to explain to you three really important arguments in our debate today, and then my partner will continue on one final one. The first argument is that the process of punishing parents for the child's wrongdoing violates the basic principles of criminal justice. The second argument is that, in fact, individual responsibility is vital for children to grow up and be functioning adults. And the third argument is that we actually violate the autonomy of the parents themselves. No, thank you. Now, the fourth argument that we're going to show to you is that, in fact, we end up increasing the existence of crime through the punishment of parents. So, the first important argument, this argument that says that, in fact, we violate the very basic notion of criminal justice. Because we, on Team Opposition, believe that criminal justice is about two important things. It is about, one, the rehabilitation of people who commit crimes, and two, the keeping the rest of society safe. Any kind of arguments, any kind of system of criminal justice, like the system proposed by Team Proposition, is a system in which we just try to express our anger. We're angry at someone and therefore we punish them. That is the wrong way to approach criminal justice. It should only be about rehabilitation. And so for that reason, we believe with the second part of Team Proposition's advocacy, the fact that we rehabilitate children, but we believe that we should put all our resources towards that second part, and that the first part is the ineffective one. No thank you. Now, the second, in fact, what this system actually hurts criminal justice. Because criminal justice is also based on the notion that individuals are responsible for their actions. Individual responsibility is a cornerstone of criminal justice. But what we're doing here is instead we're punishing on a long chain of cause and effect. This caused this, which might have caused that. That is, in fact, exactly what they're arguing when they talk about the potential for negligence. They're arguing about a long cause of chain effect, which does not make sense, as criminal justice should be about very basic notions of individual responsibility. Now, the second argument that we can present to you today is that, in fact, that this is necessary for children to grow up. Because what we believe is that childhood is about individual development and maturation. That children are, in fact, looking for boundaries. And Team Proposition agrees with this notion. But what they're instead going to do is they're going to divert resources to clogging all kinds of legal systems and diverting money diverting time to punishing parents, when instead we should put those efforts towards, in fact, protecting children. Because children because ultimately we have to teach children lessons that they are accountable for their own actions. And this exists in the world today all the time. We punish children, we give them a timeout. We punish them for plagiarism because we're teaching them that they should grow up in a world in which they're responsible for their own actions. And no accountability means no successful development, which means that, in fact, they have a failure to be a functioning regular adult. This is the greatest possible violation of culpability, as we no longer actually treat children as being responsible for their crime. We're telling you, no, it's as if your parent was there at the same time, your parent was the one committing the crime, your parent is responsible just as well. That process of deferring responsibility is not good from the point of view of children accepting full responsibility. And so the choice is partial responsibility or full responsibility, and you would always choose full responsibility. Now, the final argument we are going to present to you today is an argument that says, in fact, that this violates the autonomy of the parents. And here's the reason why, which is children are their own individuals. Parents may be the biological cause of children, but that doesn't make them the same thing as the child, because there are a million different factors that affect children. And what Team Proposition doesn't realize today is that, in fact, you can never attribute the actions of a single parent as to causing the child's harm. It could be a million different other things. Which means that, in fact, even if a parent raised a child perfectly, the absolute best way, the parent could still be punished because the child committed a crime. Now, this would be a ridiculous system of criminal justice because the parent is not at all responsible. We can't assume that, one, parents are always perfect. We can't hold them to that level, and we can't actually adopt a system in which we punish them if their children aren't perfect. Yes.
Isn't this already addressed in our policy, which we stated that we would only punish parents if we saw them as responsible?
Okay, excellent. So let's get on to that right now, because this is the fundamental issue with the Proposition case that they do not answer in the POI, and so I'm going to make it abundantly clear. Here's the problem. If parents are actively responsible, if they are actively aiding and abetting the crime and saying, we are telling you to do this, or we're watching you do it, and we're getting away with it, they are committing the crime. That is actually a precedent in criminal justice right now, which is if you watch someone kill someone else and you just stand there and don't stop it, or you know that something's going to happen and you don't tell anyone, you've committed a crime. So when in fact, they're not even fulfilling their own burden in the round to prove that they're punishing for the crimes of children. They're punishing for the crimes of adults. They're punishing for the crimes of adults of allowing these things to happen, which is not actually the topic of the resolution. Yes, I'll take your point.
First of all, you state that parents have zero responsibility for their children's actions, and then you say it's already embedded in our legal system of criminal negligence. That's a contradiction. Defend yourself.
That is not a contradiction, sir. What I'm telling you is that it's absurd to adopt a system in which parents are not actually involved, parents are not responsible for the actions, and we still punish them. Which means, but the flip side of that is that if parents are actively involved and are actively allowing this to happen, then the crime is to the parents. It places you in a, there is no way for you to turn because in either direction you have to side with team opposition on that point. Now, so we believe, so team opposition on that point. So, let's deal with the other arguments made by side proposition. They make all of these arguments about the necessity of involving a system of rehabilitation, why it's really important. That's not going to matter in the round. Because we both agree that rehabilitation is actually important. The only issue of contention, the only place where we disagree, is whether parents should be actively involved. So the first thing that we would say about this argument of responsibility is the fact that, in fact, in plenty of instances, parents do not actively know that the children are committing the crimes. They say that parents absolutely know that your children have these guns and they're going out, and parents are actively not stopping them. We argue that in the great majority of instances, parents don't know. But in the instances in which parents do know, it is not a crime of, it's not solely a crime of the child, it's a crime of the child and a crime of the parent. We should punish the crime of the child by rehabilitating them. We should punish the crime of the parent separately. But the punishment for the crime of the parent should be based on our already existing legal system in which we punish people for aiding and abetting crimes, not for this new system that they're developing, because it only makes sense to use the more practical and more established system of punishment as they're creating like a new precedent in law that is absolutely unnecessary as it already exists and exists in a better way of solving it. And then they make these arguments about the better way of solving it. So, you're not looking at these arguments about like feasibility and things like it's absolutely impossible because in fact we're just narrowing it down to the specific instances in which there is actually contention as to whether parents are involved or children are involved, and the effect of children, rehabilitation of children doesn't matter. This is simple. It violates autonomy it violates the autonomy of the parents because they can never assume that their children are perfect. It's simple because it goes against the basic tenets of criminal justice, and as long as both of us in this round are trying to uphold criminal justice, we should respect those tenets.